It's not my appearance that evokes love within you. The chronicles of my life could captivate the imagination of a TV series creator. Let's begin with my childhood, where I stood tall among my peers, surpassing even boys who were typically shorter than girls. Over the years, I have grown to a height of 2 meters and 5 centimeters. Naturally, at the age of 5, I joined a volleyball club, which helped me maintain excellent physical fitness. Additionally, thanks to my parents, I possess blonde hair and captivating blue eyes, a combination that tends to attract attention from the opposite sex. However, every barrel of honey contains a few bitter drops. During my first grade year, our school faced a quarantine, and I unfortunately contracted mumps. As my mother recalls, it was not just an ordinary case of mumps, but rather a severe one. Consequently, my body suffered greatly. Though the memories of that time are hazy, I recall the frustration of being bedridden when my body was accustomed to constant movement. The challenges didn't end there. It might not have been solely due to the illness, but around the age of 7, I noticed that my physical attributes differed in size. This realization brought about embarrassment, causing me to avoid unnecessary exposure in the locker room or feeling self-conscious in front of my mother. Some might argue that such concerns were merely figments of a child's imagination, but they were genuine. As I entered puberty, I discovered that things weren't functioning as they should. Filled with shame, I mustered the courage to discuss this with my parents, who promptly took me to a specialist. The doctors provided no definite answers. While it fell within the lower range of the norm, apparently there is a range, it wasn't considered pathological. The reasons behind this peculiarity remain uncertain. It could be attributed to factors during intrauterine development, or perhaps the interference of mumps. There were also concerns regarding the duration of erections. However, the capacity for arousal exists, and the necessary channels function accordingly. It's simply a unique characteristic. Unfortunately, this anomaly requires extra caution when it comes to using regular condoms, necessitating heightened attentiveness. The reassurances from the doctors failed to alleviate my concerns, leaving me fearful of interacting with girls. However, life has a way of surprising us. Within the sports complex where we trained, there was a small cafe. We often visited it to purchase refreshments like water and juices, and occasionally even enjoyed meals there. Aliona, an attractive woman in her mid-30s, worked at the cafe. She possessed a natural beauty and a petite stature. Interestingly, her children attended the same school as me, and her husband was well known in the neighborhood for owning the cafe and having a reputation as a ladies' man. Perhaps weary of his infidelities, Aliona took the initiative and became not only my first partner, but also my long-term lover for 2 years. She provided immense support in helping me understand myself and taught me how to compensate for my physical idiosyncrasies. I am eternally grateful to her for that. When she tragically passed away in a car accident alongside her intoxicated husband, I genuinely mourned her loss for several days. Time has a way of healing wounds. By sheer chance, I encountered a girl named Katya on the internet. She was in her final year of high school, living in a small village, and aspired to come to our city for further studies. Naively, I believed that she would possess the same sincerity and patience as Aliona. However, reality proved otherwise. We moved in together, but she betrayed my trust multiple times, seeking forgiveness each time while claiming that I was the best. I forgave her, perhaps growing accustomed to the situation. One day, I overheard her discussing my intimate struggles with a friend, and it became clear that our relationship could no longer continue. However, she beat me to the punch and confessed that she was pregnant with another man's child, declaring her intention to leave. Recently, I happened to see her, but she had transformed into an unrecognizable figure, a real embodiment of promiscuity marred by alcohol. I averted my gaze, avoiding any semblance of a greeting. This experience was a harsh disappointment. The belief in the tenderness and grace that Alyona had instilled in me shattered. For a considerable time, I couldn't bring myself to open up to new possibilities. I channeled all my energy into training, especially since I started playing for the main team of our city. I also enrolled in the Institute of Physical Education through correspondence, further dedicating myself to my athletic pursuits. Now, let's shift gears and talk about something else. It was during the early days of our classes when we had some joint training sessions with the girls' team. It was there that I first met Xenia, and I was immediately drawn to her. We frequently crossed paths, establishing a good rapport. We even attended a training camp together. At that time, when we were both 16, one of our club's wealthy sponsors took an interest in Xenia. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy, although I tried to brush it off. In the end, things didn't work out between Xiosha and the wealthy sponsor. She had aspirations to continue playing, but he offered her the opportunity to relocate to another city as his mistress. Unsatisfied with that arrangement, she recognized her own worth, and that both intimidated and intrigued me. To this day, I can't quite fathom how I gathered the courage to approach her soon after everyone learned about their breakup. I wanted to uplift her spirits, and in a casual manner, I confessed my love for her. I fully expected her to lash out at me. Instead, she looked directly into my eyes and remarked, "Couldn't you have told me earlier? Or did I have to go through a million lovers before you finally realized your feelings?" Now, as we reminisce about that conversation, we share laughter. We compliment each other not only in bed, but also in life. On the court, we cheer each other on, understanding and respecting our shared choice, volleyball.
Next great story.
The lodger turned into my spouse. I hold deep affection for my parents. They embody goodness, kindness, and care. Sometimes they can be a tad overprotective. Katiusha, put on a hat. It's chilly today. My mother worries. Kitten, don't read while lying down. You'll harm your eyes. My father frets. As a child, I accepted it as a given, but as an adult, constantly hearing phrases like, "Sweetie, don't stay out late after work. The streets are filled with hooligans," or "Katinka, coffee at night is bad. Drink milk with honey instead." Well, occasionally I would quietly swear under my breath. When I reached the age of 27, the constant parental care had worn me out, and I finally came to the realization that I urgently needed my own space. Unfortunately, there were no grandparents or aunts who might have bequeathed an apartment to me, so there was only one solution: buying one myself. How could an average manager with an average salary purchase an apartment? Simple, take out a loan. Without a second thought, I decided to plunge into financial obligations. But before heading to the bank, I informed my parents, "Mom, Dad, I'm an adult and I want to live independently." "What about us?" Mom spluttered. "What's wrong with us?" Daddy looked crestfallen. "I cherish our relationship, but I'll never have a personal life if things continue this way." My argument struck a chord, and my dear parents, wiping away a few tears, bestowed their parental blessing. Initially, I had intended to buy a one-bedroom apartment, but then I reconsidered and took a chance on a two-bedroom instead. The price difference wasn't too significant, and if my personal life blossomed, I could convert the second room into a nursery. Luck was on my side. I stumbled upon a fantastic, albeit small, apartment in an old leafy neighborhood. The previous owners had relocated to another city and sold it along with the furniture. The repairs were relatively recent, and the plumbing was in good shape. To top it off, there were two charming balconies. In a word, I could move in and begin my life. And so, I moved in and settled down. The euphoria lasted for about a month. Soon enough, I discovered that surviving on the meager crumbs left from my salary after loan repayments was impossible. Well, technically it was possible, but extremely challenging. It barely covered my basic necessities. I felt the weight of my financial disadvantage intensely when I unexpectedly ran into my former classmate, Marinka, on the street. After exchanging the obligatory hugs and kisses, she insisted on taking me to a pizzeria. The problem was, I only had 300 rubles a day for food, not a penny more. If I spent 1,000 now, I'd have to tighten my belt for 3 whole days. Marinka was perceptive, even back in school, and it seemed she had developed clairvoyance over the years. It was as if she could read my mind. Struggling with money, she asked, come on, I received a payment today, so it's on me." "Don't make it up," I replied, pretending to be nonchalant. "Let's split the bill. I told you I received a payment, and it's more than I expected, so let's go, my friend." After 2 beers, I relaxed and asked, "Listen, Marina, how did you know I had no money?" "Because I know you're avoiding treating others. If things were normal, you would have dragged me to some cafe. But since you didn't, I figured it must be a temporary crisis." "I'm afraid it's more permanent," I sighed. "At least for the next 15 years. Probably because you bought the apartment on credit," she guessed. Bullseye. I decided to buy 2 rooms at once. And now, I sadly waved my hand. Now I can't even afford to wear a skirt. There's not enough money for pantyhose. "Why don't you get a lodger?" she suggested. "You can earn some money for pantyhose and other indulgences." "You know, that thought never occurred to me," I confessed. "It's an idea. I could rent a room to a student. Although, I'm still scared to let a stranger into my house. There are so many scammers out there. By the way, my cousin was offered a job in Moscow. I think he would love to rent a room from you." Sharing a roof with a complete stranger, I mused. Well, I don't know. Get to know him, and he won't be a stranger anymore. I can guarantee he's not a crook. The main thing is that the lodger takes care of the property and pays rent on time. And I vouch for Max in that regard, she assured me. And by the way, he's not old. I wondered for some reason. "What, are you planning to cook him?" Marinka chuckled. "He's perfect." "Well, it's up to you to decide." After contemplating for a couple of minutes, I nodded. "Okay, call your perfect tenant. Let him know I'm ready to rent him a room for $200, for $300. My brother is a high-end programmer, and he has a good salary, so he won't be short on cash." A week later, Max arrived at my apartment. A quiet 35-year-old guy who seemed a bit lost in his own world, like many programmers. Despite being on his wavelength, he remembered to clean up after himself and turn off the lights. Another pleasant surprise was that he only came home to sleep. In short, he was a dream lodger, not just some random stranger. Initially, I had little interest in Max's life, but living under the same roof meant we weren't complete strangers. Max would eat simple meals like Chinese noodles and sandwiches, and I would have my usual soups and borscht. Considering his well-being, I suggested having dinner together so that he wouldn't develop gastritis. He didn't refuse and even started contributing to our shared meals. As I took the initiative to wash his dirty clothes, what's the harm in throwing in an extra sweater or t-shirt in the washing machine? Max took on the responsibility of taking out the trash regularly. Mayakovsky once wrote, "The love boat broke over everyday life." But with Max and me, it seemed to work the other way around. Our bond grew out of our daily routines. It grew so gradually that neither of us noticed it. Then one day, Max decided to take a vacation and visit his family. "Take a 3-week break from me," he said, packing his belongings into a bag. "I'll rest, yeah," I nodded. "I won't put these pants down. They'll get wrinkled. Let me fold the shirt myself." I suspected that I would feel bored without him. Little did I know that I would almost be consumed by boredom. I lost my appetite and shed 3 pounds in just 10 days. And on the 11th day, Max unexpectedly returned. "Did something happen?" I asked, startled. "I just wanted to come back home," he replied. "I start my vacation tomorrow," I said, trying my best to conceal the excitement bubbling inside me. "I still have 10 days left. Let's go somewhere. You were drawn to your home. I'm drawn to you, and it's an overwhelming feeling. I looked into his eyes. No, he wasn't lying. That was the truth. Today, Max and I finished renovating the small room. We put up new wallpaper adorned with colorful sailing ships against a blue background. I think it's a wonderful choice, especially since it will serve as a boys' nursery.